Okay dokie, everybody. I'm holding them. Let me just set them down. I have quite a few books to talk about this month. I read 10 books in the month of October, which is awesome. I technically kind of read like 11, but I didn't finish the last one until today, which is November 6th. So I probably read like half of it. Anyway, so I'm not including that in here. All of these books are in other videos, and that's why this wrap up is coming up so late, because I had to finish. It will be up by now. I read the top 5 most popular books on my Goodreads or whatever I called it. So I had to finish that before I could put this up, and so therefore that's why this is a little bit late, but that's okay. I don't think you'll mind. So I have that video where 4 of these books are, so if you want to hear about them, go to that video. And then I have another 3 books that are in another video that is already up, where I tried to like listen to as many audiobooks as I could in the week. Most of these books I'm just going to show you. I'm not going to talk about them. So this isn't 10,000 hours long like most of my wrap-ups are. So let's first talk about the ones from my audiobook. I listened to Hate List by Jennifer Brown. This was a big boy, and I believe, well, at that time I wasn't doing ratings. Surprise, I think I'm doing ratings again. I will give a short video about that later on, explaining my thoughts and what I'm doing now and yada yada, all that good stuff. So I would just give this a 3. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it that much. I think this book is important, and some people, I'm sure, especially of the young adult age range, will really enjoy this. I enjoyed it pretty good, but again, I think just age range wise, didn't connect with it as much. Next we have Gem and Dixie by Sarah Zarr. This I would again give a 3-star. And I said in that video, I probably would have given this a lot higher of a rating if I had read this like earlier on in my booktube career, but I've just read so many stories that are like this, and so I just am kind of like desensitized to the story and not as interested, but it was written very well. I really liked the characters. It was a very sad story. It's a hard-hitting YA contemporary. It's very short. I gave this 3 stars. Next up we have Infinite in Between by Carolyn Mackler. I don't know how far I got into the audiobook. I think I was about 40%, and I ended up DNFing this one. Again, you can see why over on the other video. And I just really disliked these characters. They were very immature, very annoying, very just like all they talked about was wanting to have sex and wanting to kiss and wanting, you know, just, I don't know. There were topics that were deep in here. There is some queer representation that I thought was, you know, could have been a really good focal point, but really wasn't. And, you know, some other things that they're going through, some harder things, but I felt like the trivial, dumb stuff that I didn't care about was like the main focus, and things that could have brought more to the story were kind of just like in the back. And yeah, I'm sure some people like it, but not me. I probably maybe even would get rid of this book. So, but again, it is a DNF, so technically I probably shouldn't give it a rating, but if I had to give it a rating of what I read, I'd probably give it a 2. It wasn't something where, again, where I did not hate it, but this was just not for me in any way. Okay, next, finally, I read Where the Crawdads Sing by Delilah Owens, and I gave this book 4 stars, surprisingly, to everybody. I really, really liked this book a whole heckin' lot. It's about this girl who lives in the marsh and has a horrible, horrible, horrible life. Again, I could just go on, but just go watch that other video where I talk more about it. But she has some hard things that a lot of hard things that happened to her, a lot of good things that happened to her. This, like I said in that video, this book is like everything in one. It's a historical fiction with a romance, courtroom drama, hard-hitting hard-hitting historical fiction, and just, I mean, it's funny, it's sad, it's everything. It's a roller coaster. It's a wild ride that by the end, at the beginning, I was not excited at all, and by the end, I didn't want it to end. It was so good. And I highly suggest, if you have doubts about it like I did for so long, just pick it up. And if it's hard for you to read it, because I have a really hard time reading historical fiction, listen to the audiobook. The audiobook was great. I loved it a lot. 4 stars. Possibly be changed to a 5-star at some point when I keep talking about it in the months to come. Next up, I read A Man Called Uwe, and nope, I said it wrong again. In the audiobook, they call him Uwe. It's A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman, and I gave this a 2 stars. This book was not for me in any way, shape, or form. I was bored. It's about this man who is very, very grumpy, and just kind of his life, him living it, and how he's grumpy and mean and ornery to everybody, and how he has neighbors that just insert themselves into his life, and how they're trying to help him not be so grumpy. And yeah, I was just so bored, and this audiobook dragged on forever, and I just wanted it to end. But I didn't hate it. It's not a 1 star. It's just definitely not for me. Then we have Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. This I gave like a 3 star. Again, I think this is a great book, but just not targeted for my age range, and so I wasn't as attached to it. It's about these 3 siblings who, 2 of them are adopted, 1 is in the foster care system. They find out that the other ones exist. They didn't know. They find out they have brothers and sisters. They connect. They are there for each one as they each have hard things that they have to deal with and go through, and really learning about family dynamics and what it means to be family. And I think it's really great, very important, written very well. But again, I would have probably loved this book had I been younger when I read it. And lastly, but firstly, the first thing I actually read for that video is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. And I, again, surprisingly gave this book 4 stars. I was hesitant to read it just because of things I had heard about it. I know that people, I don't know if they find Jojo Moyes herself problematic or her stories. Oh, but I've just heard that tossed around a lot, and I don't really understand, unless it's her personally, because I don't know anything about her personally. So I did do a little more education for myself, and so it is Jojo Moyes that is in the past gotten the kind of controversy, and I guess about her books as well, but a lot are just don't love the portrayal of the disabled community that is portrayed in Me Before You. And also she several times now, even in her newest book, she gets a lot of, like, I guess, plagiarism claims and things of that nature. So if that bothers you, there you go. But I loved this book. I thought it was really sweet. It's about a man whose name is Will, and he gets in an accident and is now basically paralyzed from the waist down with a little bit of use for his hands. And his mom hires a caretaker. Her name is Louisa, and she comes and basically just is like his friend, is what she's hired to be, and to try to cheer him up. And yeah, it's just really good. Really, really nice. And I will probably pick up something else from Jojo Moyes in the future. In October, I was planning to do the first 2 weeks were the Gilmore Girls readathon, and that's what this first book is. This is the only one that I read for it, and I didn't even read it during those 2 weeks. I don't think I read anything for like the first 2 weeks. And then after that was Spookathon, and I only read 1 book for that, but it wasn't even one of the ones I picked for Spookathon. Anyways, so I didn't end up putting up a TBR because I didn't read anything from it and whatever, and I waited too long. So the one that I had picked for Gilmore Girls readathon, and I think it was the prompt of like reading a book with Asian representation because of Lane from Gilmore Girls, and I picked The Bride Test by Helen Wong. And I loved it. This was probably a 4-star for me. It was not as good as Helen Wong's first book, The Kiss Quotient. I loved that book, but I love both of them because of the autism representation. Again, we know we love that for me. And so I just didn't connect as much to The Bride Test as I did The Kiss Quotient if we're comparing the two, which we shouldn't. These are put as like companion novels. On Goodreads it says that this is like Kiss Quotient number 2, like in the series. They have the connection of the main character in this, Kai. Kai is in the Kiss Quotient very, very, very little, and so none of the main characters from Kiss Quotient are in this. This is just Kai's story, and then his brother Quan, who is a little bit more like Kiss Quotient, he's in this as well. But it's Kai who is on the spectrum. His mom wants him to get married, so she goes to Vietnam. Is it Vietnam? Does it say? I think it's Vietnam, but I don't see it in here. Anyway, she goes and finds this girl and tells her to come to America and live with her son, and she has until the summer, and she wants her to get married to him, but if not, she'll just send her back home. She's kind of quirky. It doesn't state, and I don't think that she is on the spectrum. She's just kind of a little bit quirky, shy, I think a little bit OCD, and things like that. But it's basically their story, Kai, and I think she goes by Esmeralda, or Esme is what she goes by, but she gives herself the American name of Esmeralda. But it's just a really cute story, and yeah, I don't know, like, this is where I have a hard time with romance, like describing them or really saying like what I like and what I didn't like, because romance to me is just like, it's just fun, it's just cute, and it makes you feel good, and there's some sexy scenes in here. They're not as many as Kiss Quotient, so if you're in it for the sex scenes, I think there's only like 2 or 3, and they're not super graphic. I wouldn't say don't read this book. Like I said, I gave it a 4. And if you're into it, and if you liked Kiss Quotient, I think you would still also really enjoy The Bride Test. And I'm so excited because I also seen like a month ago or something that Helen Wong has put out her next cover for her next book. Oh, I will put it right here, and I can't remember when it comes out. I think it's coming sometime next year. But I'm all about it. I don't really know anything about it. I can't remember if I read anything about it. But I think it's marketed again as like the Kiss Quotient number 3. So I'm assuming that it's going to have some other characters. I don't know if it's going to continue on with characters on the spectrum or what, but I'm so excited. I will definitely be buying and continuing on with Helen. There's a plane if you can hear it. Sorry. Next up. Ooh, this book, guys. Like I said, I read this for Spookathon, but it wasn't actually like I was intending to read it for Spookathon. This was my book club book that I said I had to get to because October was the last month, and the hype of this book is so worth it. No Exit by Taylor Adams. I can't stop thinking about this book. Oh, this is a thriller novel. If you don't know, if you haven't heard people talking about it, it's about this girl who is trying to drive in the middle of the night from Idaho to Utah, and she's trying to see her mom because her mom has just found out that she has cancer, and it's like stage 4, and she's trying to get back to her mom. And so she leaves in the middle of the night, and she gets stopped in this insane blizzard, and her car, of course, is broken down 1990 Honda, you know, windshield wipers don't work, and so she basically has to stop at this little rest stop, and it's her and 4 other people who are at this rest stop. At one point, she goes out to her car to get something, and she walks by this van, and she looks in the window, in the back window, and sees a little girl trapped in this cage. And then it's just on this whirlwind ride of her trying to decide how she is going to rescue her, and who she can trust and who she can't, and who's the one that it's their van. And I will say that, like, this book tries to throw some red herrings, and I didn't bite on it for a second. Like, this book was so predictable, and again, I said in another video talking about, it's talking about Scythe. In the same way of, I shouldn't say it was predictable. It's not like I was like thinking, I'm like, okay, this is what's gonna happen, and then, yep, that's what happened. That's not how it was. There was a couple times that happened, with knowing who the killer was. It was just very unsurprising, and like, when something happened, it's like, well, yeah. Almost kind of where it was a little cheesy, but it was so good. I didn't even care. My heart was pounding the entire time. I read this book so fast. I stayed up so late because I had to finish it. And I think I am on the thriller train, people. I think I have bought a ticket and I will be riding indefinitely because I just could not put this down. It was so good. Oh my gosh. There were some things at the end that I thought were totally unnecessary and like didn't need to happen, where I was like, well, that's just becoming like stupid. Like, why do we need that? But honestly, I give this book 5 out of 5. I've been recommending it to everybody, and they have like 5 characters. Like I said, it's her, well, 6 characters, her, the girl, and then the 4 other people at the restaurant. But really there's like a 7th main character, and that is the bathroom window. If you've read this book, you know what I mean. That big bathroom window. Oh, I love it. I love this book so much. It's almost like I want to read it again, but I won't. But still, you should read this book if you haven't. And lastly, this book was like my most shocking book in a very long time. Besides Where the Crawdads Sing, because I thought I was going to hate that book too. I was blown away. I was bored and decided to pick up another audiobook, even though I'd done the audiobook week thing. So I just got on and seen what was available right then that I had on my shelves, because that's also what I'm trying to do. I don't know if I really explained it that much in my audiobook video, but I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and it's been in the past that I just like get on, and if I see a book that I like, I'll just get it. But I'm trying to only get audiobooks of books that I own. So everything I'm consuming is stuff I already own, so I can get my TBR down. That was Paper Towns by John Green. So the little backstory about this, I have looked many, many times because I have a lot of John Green's books, and I've only read Looking for Alaska, and I just didn't like it, and I don't think I jived with John Green. And so I've just like been wanting to get the audiobooks just to get them over with, but my library never has them. Well, because of Looking for Alaska coming out on the Hulu series, all of his books now exist on my library for audiobooks. Not all of them, but quite a few of them. And Paper Towns had no wait. And so I got it, and I freaking loved this book. Oh my gosh. First, when I was listening to it, since I've only read Looking for Alaska. Okay, I'm going to put a little spoilery thing in here. If you haven't read John Green's books and you want to be surprised, skip ahead a little bit. I won't talk very long about it. So just skip ahead a little bit. Okay, if you're gone, here we go. So Looking for Alaska is what it is. And then Paper Towns seemed like it was basically the same exact thing. And I was like, does John Green literally only write about girls, teenage girls, committing suicide or dying? Because, you know, Fault in the Stars, doesn't she die in that too? I don't know. I haven't seen the movie or read that book. But Looking for Alaska, she commits suicide. And when I was reading this book, I thought for sure she was gonna commit suicide as well. Very glad that didn't happen. Anyways, now we are back. So I just loved it, and I will highly, 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 highly recommend the audiobook for this. Specifically, the thing I think that sold me on this freaking book is there is I believe it was prom night. The prom night scene with the keg stand. What is his name? One of his friends. The audiobook of it was hilarious. I was laughing so hard listening to that scene in my car by myself. Like, oh my gosh. But there were so many things too. Just the characters in this are so colorful. And yeah, this book was amazing. I really, really liked it. Is this book a 5-star? I would say the audiobook is a 5-star. This book, if I was to read it, would probably be a 4 for me. Maybe even a 3. But the audiobook was a 5 just because it was so entertaining. Basically, this book is about a boy in high school who, when he's young, the beginning of the book, there's this girl that lives next door to him. They find this dead body in the park of this man, and then like she becomes cool and leaves him, and he is not cool, and he has his groups of friends, the 2 or 3 boys that are in his group. They're what make this book for me. Anyways, and then they kind of like, their paths cross together. They go on this wild night where she's like sick of her friends and kind of want to seek revenge, and so she decides that she's going to have him be the one that drives her around, and they're going to do all these crazy things together. And it was weird because I thought that was like going to be the entire book, but it was going by so fast, and it was only like this far into the book, and then it was over, and I was like, well, what the heck is going to happen? So then some things happen. I thought I wasn't going to like it because she's kind of, you know, that manic pixie dream girl that John Green seems to write, and I'm just not into that. But luckily, that sounds bad, but she's actually not in this book that much. She's not the main focus. The main character is Quentin, and he's the main focus, and I really like him a lot. And just the things that happened, it was thought-provoking. I use that a lot. I don't know if it's thought-provoking, not like earth-shattering where you thought-provoking, but it really kept my attention. I was really entertained. I really liked it a lot. It was really fun, and like I said, just his friends just make this whole entire book. The audiobook was so good. I think I'm going to do a video talking about like my favorite audiobooks because I listen to so many, and this will definitely make the very tippy top of that list. I love the audiobook so much. I am not going to pick them up. That is everything that I read. I'm very happy with the dent that I made in this stack, and I'm just so dang happy. Have you read any of these books? Let me know your opinions. As always, I would love to just chat and talk more, so if you feel like it, comment some stuff down there. Let's talk, let's be friends, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.